economist to join us, talking about this new borrowing by President Tinubu. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, Nigerians.
All right, you've gone through these reports of the 21.19, $1 billion loan by President Tinubu. How, in your own words, can you describe the loan already approved by the National Assembly? Is it worth it?
Right. I'd like to take it from where President Muhammad Buhari stopped. You recall that as at May 2023, the debt stood at 87 trillion, but now we are about 149 as at March 2025. That shows that there is much more borrowing in Tinubu government. But the question is that what are they actually using this money for? It has been captured in MTF, and they schedule how it's going to go. But the question is that how well are we using all this borrowing? Because if you look at our debt service to our revenue to debt servicing, you see that most of our income are used for our debt servicing. That simply shows that we must rethink, we must activate our fiscal discipline to make sure that we are borrowing in the right way. So let's look at the 21 trillion that is $1 billion that is being borrowed. It is said that it's borrowed for coastal road, for some projects. The question is that the National Assembly that are always quick to actually approve this borrowing, how well are they carrying out their oversight? As an economist, I can tell you borrowing is not bad in as much as you are using it for capital expenditure. But the question is that how well is the output? Because look at our Mambila power project, we have not been able to have a good record for it. We could also score, though, President Muhammad Buhari for some of his borrowing, maybe like a rail line, but in this case, we have not seen it at all. And I also go back to where President Tinubu came to power. He actually removed fuel subsidy, float the naira. FRS has said that they are getting more revenue. Customs are getting more revenue. Then why don't we manage what we have so far before you now borrow? If I was thinking President Tinubu will not borrow throughout his first term, if he eventually comes second term, he can consider that because he has much more money available, according to him and his administration.
Okay, Mr. Ilias, let me go to the second question, which is that the African Democratic Congress, ADC, has condemned this loan. It calls it fiscal vandalism. Do you agree to that, and why?
Well, any borrowing that does not have a good intention is fiscal indiscipline. But for Africa, ADC, like I said earlier, it's not bad to borrow. What you are borrowing for is what matters. So I expect ADC to bring out project by project and analyze it, how well has it been doing? And that's how we can actually have a good critique or good conversation about debt. So for me, I think we are borrowing too much, and it's going to affect us moving on, simply because we are going to repay. If you look at our budget for 2025, our debt servicing alone is about 14 trillion. That has eroded what all Nigerians should benefit from. Remember, this capital expenditure that benefits major Nigerians, that has to do with what? Road, health, education, has been eroded by this debt servicing. So we must call ourselves to bring ourselves back to normalcy and see how we can actually reduce it. We can also argue the other way around that most advanced governments like America, like Japan, China are borrowing too, but what are we borrowing for? So I think we should review. And the onus lies on the National Assembly. They should not just take everything hook, line, and sinker. They should scrutinize and make sure we borrow for the right reasons.
Okay, let me stay with the ADC now. Let me just stay with them. The party also said the loan could drive Nigeria to public debt beyond 200 trillion naira by the end of 2025. How true is this? And if this is true, is Nigeria not in some kind of danger?
Right. I think this borrowing that President Bola Tinubu embarked on has been captured in MTF already. That's through the 2025-2026. But by and large, when you borrow, it's created much more, it's created fewer job opportunity for Nigeria higher inflation. It's also reduced to access to public service. So that's it. The amount it will amount to is not even my problem. It's the effect on the economy as an economist. Because if you look at the effect on the economy, you see that it's reflecting on inflation. It's also taking all our money away. And government is trying to actually reduce the inflation. Why they still go in that route? So I think what they use the money for is what we should canvass for now. And there should be a watchdog that will continue to make sure that the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu utilize this money as expected without bearing to what is not. Because if you are borrowing, the principle of borrowing should be borrowing for capital projects and some maybe human resource reasons. Anything beyond this, it's not a good borrowing. So we must bring back our fiscal discipline to do that. And also remember that our GDP that has been replaced is also giving government much more power to borrow more. But for me, I think we should borrow less. We should tarry. We should hold on and maximize what we have before we can say we'll go borrow. Because borrowing is also waiting for you. You must repay. And that simply means the generation that are coming are going to be in debt.
Okay, finally, in just 30 seconds, if you can quickly tell us, if Nigerians should not know the specifics of these loans, can somebody just tell Nigerians what these loans are meant for, what they are intended to impact?
Right. I think basically it's an open document. When they borrow, they say they borrow for the coastal road, though they are borrowing for infrastructure and what have you. So it's an open book that we can always access. But the question is that if the borrowing does not do what it's supposed to do, it brings about problem. As an economist, borrowing is not bad, but borrowing must be capital project related and nothing short of that.
Okay, we must thank you so very much for joining us on AIT Reports. We've been speaking to Aliyu as an economist. He joined us to talk about President Tinubu's borrowing. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.